7 years. That is how long it has been since one of Turkey's most beloved couples quietly closed the door on their relationship. No dramatic press conference. No public breakdown. No bitter social media war. Just silence. And somehow, that silence said everything. Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu were not just two actors who happened to date. They were, for a generation of Turkish television fans, the couple that felt real. The kind of love story people pointed to and said, this is what it actually looks like. And when it ended, millions of people who had never met them grieved it like a personal loss. But here is what almost nobody has talked about since then. What actually happened between them? What did those years together really look like behind the cameras? And the question that keeps surfacing even today, 7 years later, on fan forums, in comment sections, in quiet corners of social media, did they ever truly get over each other? Because the story of Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu is not just a celebrity breakup story. It is something stranger, more layered, and far more human than that. Let us go back to the beginning. When Barış Arduç first appeared on Turkish screens, he had that quality that is almost impossible to manufacture. Presence. He was not just handsome in a conventional sense. He carried a kind of restless intensity, the type that makes audiences lean forward without quite knowing why. He had done smaller roles, built his craft quietly, and then came the projects that changed everything. His career trajectory was steep and fast, and audiences responded to him in a way that felt almost personal. Elçin Sangu was already a recognized face in Turkish entertainment when their paths crossed. She had proven herself in a range of projects, demonstrated real range as an actress, and earned the kind of respect in the industry that does not come from hype alone. She was sharp, grounded, and had a screen presence that matched his in an interesting way. Not identical, but complementary. The kind of chemistry that casting directors dream about. They first appeared together on set, and the dynamic was immediate. Cast and crew reportedly noticed it early. There was an ease between them that did not feel performed. In interviews from that period, both were careful, professionally guarded, the way actors in Turkey often are when the personal and professional are this entangled. But there were tells. The way they looked at each other in group settings. The way they spoke about each other, always with a precision that suggested they had thought carefully about what to say. It was not long before the speculation became confirmation. They were together. And the public reaction was overwhelming. Turkish entertainment fans are deeply invested in their beloved stars, and the concept of real-life couples mirroring on-screen chemistry carries enormous emotional weight in that culture. When Barış and Elçin confirmed what many had suspected, the response felt almost like a celebration. Fan accounts exploded. Edit videos flooded YouTube. Hashtags in Turkish trended repeatedly. The public had decided these two belonged together, and the public was rarely shy about expressing that. For a period of time that lasted the better part of several years, they were everywhere together. Award shows, public events, glimpsed in paparazzi photos during ordinary moments at restaurants, on vacations, living what appeared to be a genuinely normal life underneath the extraordinary visibility. And this is what set them apart from some celebrity couples. They did not perform their relationship for the audience. They shared selectively, carefully, and what they did share felt unscripted. Elçin, in particular, had always been direct in interviews. She spoke about relationships with a clarity that was refreshing. She did not traffic in vagueness when asked sincere questions. And while she protected the core of her private life, the things she did say painted a picture of someone who valued honesty and depth in partnership above almost everything else. Barış, by contrast, tended toward a kind of quiet intensity in his public statements, the sort of person who means more than he says, who communicates volumes through what he chooses not to explain. Together they seemed, to everyone watching, to make a kind of sense. Then came the silence. There was no announcement, no statement, no post. One day, people began to notice that the shared appearances had slowed, then stopped. The social media interactions, which fans had cataloged obsessively, dried up. The energy that had radiated from their public presence together simply was not there anymore. Speculation filled the vacuum immediately. Turkish celebrity media, which operates with an intensity that rivals anything in the Western press, began circling. Various outlets published theories. Some pointed to career pressures, both of them navigating major professional decisions during that period. Others suggested the nature of their work itself, two actors in demand, frequently apart, carrying the emotional residue of complex roles home with them, was simply unsustainable. There were also the inevitable rumors of third parties, the kind that attached to any high-profile breakup regardless of evidence, and it is important to be clear that none of those rumors were ever confirmed or substantiated. What was confirmed, eventually, through the absence of denial and the gradual fading of any joint presence, was that the relationship had ended. Neither of them made a statement. Think about that for a moment in the context of modern celebrity. In an era where even minor celebrities issue carefully worded Instagram posts about their relationship status, two of the most recognizable faces in Turkish entertainment chose absolute silence. No closure for the public. No narrative shaped for sympathy. Just dignity, maintained at some personal cost, because there is a cost to saying nothing when the entire internet is asking questions. That silence was a kind of statement in itself. And it told people who were paying attention something important about who both of them actually were. In the months that followed, both Barış and Elçin continued their careers separately and, by most visible measures, thrived. Barış took on projects that pushed his range considerably. The characters he chose in the period after the relationship ended were notably complex, morally ambiguous, emotionally demanding. Whether that was purely professional calculation or something more personal filtering through into his choices is impossible to know from the outside. But the intensity of his performances during that period did not go unnoticed by critics or audiences. Elçin, meanwhile, demonstrated what she had always been capable of when the full weight of her attention was on her craft. She moved through projects with a focus that impressed people in the industry. She also became more vocal in certain spaces about the nature of modern relationships, about authenticity, about what it means to protect your inner world in a profession that constantly invites exposure. Her words, in various interviews and conversations from that period, were not directed at anyone specifically, but fans who had followed the story closely heard them in a particular way. Here is the part that is harder to talk about and arguably more important. The public grief over this breakup was not trivial. This sounds like an exaggeration until you actually look at the volume and intensity of what fans expressed. Letters, videos, tributes, threads analyzing every interview and appearance going back years to find the moment things changed. Some of this behavior veered into territory that was genuinely problematic, with some fans refusing to accept the reality and constructing elaborate alternative narratives. Others simply mourned in a way that was quite honest about what they were actually mourning, not just two people, but the idea those two people represented. Because what Barış and Elçin had seemed to represent, in the cultural imagination of their audience, was the possibility of real love surviving inside an industry that frequently destroys it. They were proof of concept. And when the proof of concept was withdrawn, it disturbed something in people. This is worth sitting with. The parasocial weight placed on celebrity couples is enormous and largely invisible until it breaks. People construct emotional scaffolding around these relationships without fully realizing they are doing it. When that scaffolding collapses, the feeling is real even if the foundation was always imagined. This is not a criticism of the fans. It is simply a description of how human beings actually work when exposed to compelling stories about compelling people. Now comes the part of the story that complicates everything that came after. Both Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu eventually moved forward with their lives in ways that were visible and public. Barış, in the years following the breakup, formed a relationship that became a marriage. His wedding was a significant moment in Turkish entertainment culture, covered extensively, discussed at length, celebrated by many. He appeared, by every observable measure, to have found genuine happiness. Elçin's path took its own shape. She continued to work at a high level, continued to be forthright and thoughtful in her public statements, and remained one of the most respected figures in Turkish television. Her approach to the questions that never fully stopped coming about that chapter of her life about relationships, about what she wanted, was always controlled but never dismissive. She gave people enough to feel seen without giving them access they had not earned. What is interesting, and what fans who have followed both of them closely will tell you, is that the warmth between these two people never entirely disappeared from public view. There were moments, small and infrequent, but documented, where the hostility or resentment that often marks a public breakup was simply absent. They were asked about each other, and they did not reach for the knife. They did not diminish each other. They spoke, when they spoke at all, with a residual regard that was quiet but unmistakable. This matters more than it might initially seem. In an industry where relationships often curdle into professional rivalry or worse, the visible absence of bitterness between Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu suggests something about the nature of what they had and how they handled its ending. It is speculation, to be honest, to read too deeply into this. We do not know what their private conversations looked like. We do not know what was said or felt in the parts of this story that never reached anyone outside the two of them. But the public record, such as it is, tells a story of two people who recognized something worth honoring even in the wreckage of something that did not survive. 7 years is a long time. Long enough for the sharpest edges of any story to soften. Long enough for people to become, if not entirely different, then substantially changed versions of who they were. The Barış Arduç who is navigating his career and his life in 2026 is not the same person who was photographed at red carpet events years ago with Elçin Sangu beside him. The Elçin Sangu who speaks now about work, about authenticity, about what she values, is not the same person either. This is how it works. This is how it is supposed to work. But the audience does not always give people permission to grow past the version of themselves that the audience loved. This is one of the genuine cruelties of public life. Fans freeze celebrities in amber at the moment of peak emotional investment. Barış and Elçin, for a significant portion of their audience, will always exist together in that amber, in that particular configuration that felt like something worth believing in. The actual human beings, of course, have no interest in being frozen. What the last 7 years have demonstrated about both of them is something that tends to get lost in the noise of celebrity storytelling, character. Barış Arduç chose, in the years after the breakup, to keep building, to take his work seriously, to avoid the traps that swallow many performers when their personal lives become more visible than their craft. 2. By all observable evidence, invest in a new chapter with genuine commitment. Elçin Sangu chose, in parallel, to remain exactly who she always appeared to be. Unflinching about her values. Careful about what she shares. Clear-eyed about the entertainment industry and her place within it. She has spoken about the importance of maintaining yourself, your actual self, in a profession that constantly invites performance of various kinds. That insight does not come from nowhere. It comes from experience. There is one more layer to this story that deserves to be addressed honestly. The untold truth about Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu is not some buried scandal or hidden conflict. It is something quieter and, depending on how you look at it, more profound. The untold truth is that two people loved each other, genuinely and visibly, for a significant stretch of their lives. That it did not last is a fact. That it mattered is also a fact. And the dignity with which both of them handled its ending, the refusal to perform grief or bitterness for an audience hungry for either, is a choice that deserves more recognition than it typically receives. Most people, when a relationship of that depth ends, look for someone to blame. The public certainly tried. Various theories circulated about who was at fault, who ended things, who suffered more. The participants in this story declined to play that game. And in declining it, they gave us something more interesting than a villain or a victim. They gave us a story about two adults who understood that some things do not survive, and that surviving them requires grace. The fans who still watch their interviews with a particular kind of attention, who still revisit the moments they shared in earlier years, are not wrong to feel what they feel. Those moments were real. The connection was visible and documented and, as far as anyone could observe, genuine. There is nothing foolish about mourning the end of something beautiful. But here is what 7 years of watching both of them build their separate lives actually tells us. Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu are both, by any reasonable measure, exactly where they chose to be. Not victims of circumstance, not casualties of an industry that chews people up, not frozen in a moment that the public decided was their peak. They are two people, fully alive, making choices, continuing to do remarkable work, and carrying whatever this chapter meant to them in whatever way works for each of them privately. That is not a sad ending. It is not even really an ending. It is just life, doing what life does, which is move forward whether we ask it to or not. 7 years later, the story of Barış Arduç Elçin Sangu is not a tragedy. It is a portrait of two people who were, for a time, something extraordinary together and who found the integrity to remain something worthwhile apart. The public wanted the love story to last forever. The actual people involved wanted something more honest than forever. They wanted something real, even when real meant letting go. And maybe that, more than anything, is why this story still resonates. Not because it ended badly, but because it ended the way honest things sometimes do, quietly, with both parties intact, and with something unspoken that does not need to be said out loud for everyone who is paying attention to understand exactly what it meant. What do you think? Let us know in the comments.